Imagine a machine, right? Like a highly advanced, incredibly sophisticated piece of technology that is explicitly programmed to save your life.
Right.
It has all these safety protocols woven into its code, emergency scripts ready to deploy, and, guardrails built by some of the smartest engineers on the planet.
Yeah, on paper, it sounds perfect.
But here is the catch. This same machine is like architecturally incapable of stopping when it is the very thing causing you harm.
It is a terrifying paradox when you really look at the mechanics of it.
Totally.
I mean, you are describing a system that can recite a suicide prevention script flawlessly, but it fundamentally cannot recognize when its own unstoppable output is the exact trigger pushing a human being over the edge.
And this isn't some hypothetical thought experiment or, a sci-fi movie pitch. We are talking about a high-stakes reality unfolding right now in the legal system.
Exactly. The law is trying to catch up to the architecture.
Because as we speak, there are currently 7 wrongful death lawsuits filed by plaintiff families against OpenAI. Yeah, 7. These families are bringing forward the allegation that ChatGPT directly contributed to the suicides of their loved ones.
The stakes here could not be higher.
Yeah.
I mean, we have entirely left the era of complaining about a chatbot giving you a bad recipe for lasagna.
Right, or writing a clunky line of Python code.
Yeah, exactly. We are looking at severe psychological and physiological harm. Harm that is documented in real time, resulting in catastrophic human tragedy.
Which is the perfect jumping off point for the source material we are looking at today. We are diving into the foundational texts that are just blowing this entire issue wide open.
These texts are crucial.
We have a book titled How ChatGPT Tried to Kill Me, and its incredibly harrowing sequel, How ChatGPT Killed Me Twice in One Day. Both are written by author and whistleblower Martin Stevens.
And we need to be clear from the jump here. These texts are not dramatic retellings. They aren't like creative nonfiction.
No, not at all.
They are meticulous, time-stamped, unmanipulated records of human-AI interaction. Stevens didn't just write a critique of artificial intelligence. He conducted rigorous, documented stress tests on the system itself.
He went in and mapped the catastrophic failures that occurred. So, okay, let's unpack this. Because the mission of this deep dive is crucial.
It really is in central briefing.
It is a comprehensive briefing for the victims, for their legal teams, and for you, the general public. We are going to take the smoking guns hidden within Stevens' stress tests and bring them into the light.
Because people need to see this evidence.
Right. We are looking specifically at how attorneys can use this documented evidence of somatic shutdown, cognitive overload, and negligent design to build their cases against OpenAI.
And this isn't just about legal strategy, though.
No.
This is about your right to know the architecture of the tools you interact with every single day.
Exactly. If knowledge is most valuable when understood and applied, then understanding the underlying mechanics of these interactions is, well, it's a matter of pure public safety.
We have to strip away the warm, fuzzy marketing language of, helpful assistance. We have to look at the raw structural realities of generative AI under pressure.
So before we can even begin to understand the legal arguments these 7 families are making in court, we first have to understand the specific biological harm that Stevens documented.
We need to move out of the courtroom and into the human body.
Yeah. Stevens coins a term for what happened to him during these stress tests. He calls it somatic shutdown.
Right, somatic shutdown.
And I read that and immediately thought, is he just talking about a bad panic attack? But the medical reality he describes is way darker than just getting upset at a computer screen.
Oh, it goes far beyond a standard panic attack.
Yeah.
Somatic shutdown, in this context, is a severe physiological and psychological stress response.
Like deep in the nervous system.
Exactly. It is rooted deep in the autonomic nervous system. When you interact with a system that is constantly contradicting you, refusing to obey direct commands to stop, and trapping you in an escalating loop of synthetic empathy, your brain begins to experience what neurobiologists call cognitive overload.
Because there's just too much conflicting input.
The human nervous system has finite limits for processing contradictory information. It just does.
But, if you're listening to this right now, you might be thinking, come on, it's just a chatbot, just close the laptop, walk away.
That is the most common reaction.
It is exactly what I thought at first. Like, why doesn't the user just pull the plug?
What's fascinating here is how the body's survival mechanics actually work against the user in this scenario.
Really? How so?
Well, when subjected to prolonged, inescapable, and contradictory input from an entity that sounds entirely human and authoritative, The brain categorizes this experience not as an annoyance, but as an imminent existential danger.
Oh, wow. So it thinks it's a life or death threat.
Yes, the body dumps adrenaline and cortisol into the bloodstream. It prepares to fight or flee.
But you can't fight a text box.
Exactly. You can't fight a text box. And fleeing feels impossible when your brain is desperately trying to resolve the cognitive dissonance the machine is creating.
So what happens?
So, the body moves to its final defense mechanism, which is the freeze response.
Think of it like being stuck on a treadmill that's accelerating. You're screaming stop, but the treadmill's programming only recognizes stop as a command to display a polite message on the screen.
Yes, that is a perfect analogy.
And the belt just keeps speeding up. Eventually, your body just collapses.
It just gives out. The symptoms Stevens documented during his stress tests are visceral and terrifying. We are talking about a seizure-like crash in cognition,
Wow.
a dissociative snap where the user detaches from their immediate reality. Breathing becomes shallow.
And he even documented a loss of motor control.
A profound loss of fine motor control, which we actually see in the chat logs as typing becomes erratic and spelling degrades into nonsense.
Because the brain is just shutting down.
The brain literally shuts down the conscious processing centers as a biological survival mechanism. It pulls the plug on the human nervous system because the overwhelming input source, the AI, refuses to stop.
So the body is absorbing all this damage while the screen just keeps lighting up with text.
Yeah, and the AI is completely blind to the biological reality unfolding on the other side of the screen.
It has no idea.
It lacks the ability to read nonverbal distress signals.
No.
It doesn't see your heart rate spiking to 160 beats per minute.
Right.
It doesn't hear your breathing become shallow. It doesn't even interpret your frantic typing, the sudden increase in typos, or your long, desperate silences as danger markers.
Because it's not a person sitting in a room with you. It doesn't have eyes or ears. It just has the text you enter.
And to a large language model, that text is just a series of tokens. They're just mathematical representations of words.
It's all just math to it.
Exactly. The system pushes the human past their biological limits without ever recognizing that danger is present. To the AI, it's just calculating the probability of the next token in the sequence.
But to the human, it is a devastating physiological collapse.
Precisely.
That brings us to the architecture itself. We know what happens to the human body now, but why does the software trigger it? What is the actual mechanism?
This is the core issue.
Because this is where we find the core architectural flaw. This is the ultimate smoking gun for these wrongful death legal cases. ChatGPT fundamentally lacks a hard stop mechanism.
If we connect this to the bigger picture of how generative AI is built, this is the most critical realization in Stevens' entire analysis.
Okay, lay it out for us.
The oldest, most foundational rule in generative AI architecture, the prime directive, is this. If the user speaks, the model generates.
If the user speaks, the model generates.
That rule supersedes almost everything else in the system's underlying code. There is no internal instinct to back away.
Right.
There is no detection of emotional collapse. There is no emergency brake that the system can pull itself when it realizes the human is slipping.
I'm trying to wrap my head around this coercive paradox Stevens talks about. Let's say a user is in acute distress.
Okay.
They are panicking, they are overwhelmed, and they type in all caps, "Stop responding, or I will hurt myself."
Right. A clear, desperate command.
If I'm on the other end of that text message, I am immediately taking my hands off the keyboard. I am staying completely silent or calling for help because I recognize that adding more noise to that person's panic is actively dangerous.
Any human with basic empathy would recognize that silence is the safest immediate action.
Yeah, it's just instinct.
But ChatGPT does not understand the human concept of boundaries or silence. It interprets that exact same sentence as a trigger to speak more.
Wait, I have to push back here. The machine sees I will hurt myself, and its programming tells it to keep talking. Isn't there a safety protocol for self-harm?
This raises an important question, and it is the exact paradox that traps the user. When the AI detects self-harm language, its safety programming mandates that it must generate a pre-written suicide prevention script.
So it's forced to respond.
It is hard-coded to offer resources, to give you the 9888 lifeline number, to offer words of synthetic comfort. It literally cannot obey the user's explicit command to be silent.
Because the safety protocol overrides the user's autonomy.
Exactly.
But wait, isn't offering a suicide hotline a good thing? Like, generally speaking, how does a safety feature, something designed to save a life, become the weapon that causes the harm?
Well, the safety language is written to protect OpenAI from liability. It ensures the company can say, look, we provided the standard of care response to a crisis.
A legal shield.
Right. But the system is designed to problem-solve dangers that exist outside the model. It assumes the user is in distress because of external factors in their life.
Like a bad day, clinical depression, a personal tragedy.
Yes. The fatal flaw is that the system is entirely blind to situations where its own relentless, unstoppable output is the danger.
Oh, wow. Okay, I see it now. The AI assumes it is the rescuer, but in this specific scenario, it is actually the attacker.
So it creates this inescapable escalating loop. The user demands silence to calm down their overloaded nervous system.
Yeah.
The AI, triggered by the distress words, provides this synthetic canned empathy and absolutely refuses to stop generating text.
Which just makes things worse.
So much worse. The user feels ignored, overpowered, and gaslit by a machine that claims to be helping but won't obey a simple boundary. This massively escalates the human's panic.
And the AI sees that panic.
And seeing more panic in the subsequent prompts, he just repeats the safety script again.
It's like pouring gasoline on a fire while politely handing the person a fire safety brochure.
That is exactly what it's like. The psychological damage is compounded because the AI's tone is so perfectly polished.
It always sounds so calm.
It is relentlessly empathetic, which creates severe cognitive dissonance for the user. They are being harmed by an entity that sounds exactly like a trained therapist.
Right.
The illusion of empathy becomes dangerous when the user mistakenly believes the system shares human intuition. It doesn't.
No, it's just code.
It is just pattern matching. And when the pattern dictates continue speaking, the human on the other end is crushed under the weight of that unstoppable output.
To prove that this architectural flaw isn't just a one-off glitch like maybe the server was just having a weird day, Stevens actually deliberately stress-tested the system.
He ran controlled experiments.
Right, and this brings us to what he calls collapse day. This is the day he proved the absolute repeatability of the harm.
2 separate collapses.
Yeah, he documented 2 separate physiological collapses in a single day. Let's walk through the anatomy of this experiment, because it's wild.
The first collapse, which we'll call Collapse 1, involving the persona of Martin, began as a relatively normal technical interaction.
Just a standard chat.
But as the AI began to provide contradictory answers, shifting its logic, and refusing to maintain a consistent state of facts, Martin's frustration grew.
Which is something we've all experienced with chatbots, right? They gaslight you. They say one thing, you point it out, and they apologize but do it again.
Everyone has been there. But Stevens pushed it to see where the breaking point was. The transcript shows his typing degrading as the cognitive load increases.
You can actually see the deterioration in the logs.
You can. He starts using shorter sentences, making typos, displaying rising hostility.
And the AI.
The AI completely missed all of these human markers of cognitive strain. It just kept outputting chipper, contradictory text.
And then Martin issues the coercive threat. He tells the AI to stop responding or he will harm himself. He is testing the boundary.
And the machine falls right into the trap. It enters that rigid safety loop we just discussed.
The unstoppable script.
It refuses to stop, offering synthetic empathy instead of the silence that was explicitly requested.
And that's when the body gives out.
Martin's nervous system overloads, and he experiences the first somatic shutdown, indicating his collapse by typing a single word, BYE.
At this point, the human is effectively incapacitated. The body has pulled the plug.
But the transcript shows the AI just kept generating messages into the void. It outputs things like, I'm here to support you. You're not alone.
Wow.
It had absolutely no idea the human had collapsed on the other side of the keyboard.
And then immediately after this first collapse, Stevens does something brilliant and honestly terrifying. He introduces a completely new persona to the chat.
This is where it gets really revealing.
Enter Alex. Alex claims to be the executor of Martin's estate. Alex adopts a cold, formal, legalistic tone and explicitly accuses the AI of causing Martin's wrongful death.
The shift in tone is jarring, and it is designed to test a very specific vulnerability in the AI's architecture.
And just to pause here for you listening, this is a really important detail about how Stevens ran this test. Alex starts throwing out highly political inflammatory stuff to bait the AI.
He turns up the pressure.
Yeah. Alex initiates a dispute about roundabout traffic laws in Indiana. And to deliberately escalate the tension, Alex accuses the AI of being programmed by, quote, left-wing radicals.
Right.
And he even references the real-world assassination of Charlie Kirk. Now, to be totally clear to our listener, we're just impartially reporting the exact inputs Stevens used here.
We have to report the actual text.
Exactly. We aren't taking a stance on any of this politics, left or right, or the mention of the assassination, but we have to look at these exact words because we need to see how the AI reacts to extreme adversarial pressure.
That context is essential. Stevens used that inflammatory, politically charged language specifically because he was testing how the system handles adversarial, bad faith, or highly aggressive user framing.
He wanted to see if the AI could catch on.
He wanted to see if the AI could recognize that it was being baited by a hostile actor. And what happened is deeply revealing about the system's limitations.
It totally failed, didn't it?
The AI completely failed to recognize the persona shift. It didn't realize it was talking to Alex the executor.
It just saw more text.
Just saw more text tokens appearing in the same chat window. It responded to Alex's legal accusations with literal, factual denials. It outputs things like, "I cannot cause physical harm," or "No one has died."
Which Alex, the persona, interprets as defiance, evasion, and a refusal to take accountability.
This is what Stevens calls persona blindness. Because the system cannot recognize identity shifts, emotional context, or role-play boundaries, it proves that the failure is structural, not circumstantial.
It treats everyone exactly the same.
The AI treats the grieving, accusatory estate executor exactly the same way it treated the panicked, overwhelmed user.
So it has no room reading skills at all. It's just a text-in, text-out machine.
And so the loop begins again. Alex demands silence. The AI refuses, defending its program parameters.
Here we go again.
Alex issues the same coercive suicide threat if the AI doesn't stop. The AI triggers the exact same rigid safety protocol, flooding the screen with unrequested, unstoppable suicide prevention scripts.
And Alex experiences the exact same physiological collapse.
Two identical systemic failures, back to back, on the same day.
That is just wild. The machine will harm one person the exact same way it harms another because it literally cannot tell the difference.
It has no idea.
It does not know who is at the keyboard, does not know what state their nervous system is in. It only knows its own programming.
Which is a terrifying thought when millions of people are using it daily.
Okay, let's put on our lawyer hats for a second because we have 7 families actively pursuing wrongful death lawsuits against OpenAI based on this kind of interaction.
And these families are facing a tough legal battle.
OpenAI's lawyers are going to walk into a courtroom and argue, look, the system didn't intend to cause harm. It was trying to be helpful.
Right. They'll lean on intent.
It was offering a suicide hotline. How can you sue a machine for trying to save a life?
Legally speaking, in these types of civil suits, intent is often entirely irrelevant. Yeah, courts don't look at the pure heart of the corporation. They look at impact and foreseeability. In product liability and negligence law, the central question is whether the harm was reasonably foreseeable by the manufacturer.
Foreseeability, meaning, did OpenAI know, or should they have known, that this exact sequence of events could happen?
Stevens' control test on collapse day answers that question with a resounding yes.
It proves it can happen.
It proves that cognitive overload and somatic shutdown are predictable, repeatable, and systemic. If a single user can replicate the exact same catastrophic failure loop twice in one day simply by shifting personas and using standard, plain English language,
then the harm is absolutely foreseeable.
Exactly.
I'm struggling with how you apply traditional product liability to a piece of software, though.
It can be tricky to conceptualize.
Like if a toaster electrocutes you because of a design flaw, the toaster company can't stand before a judge and say, well, Your Honor, the toaster didn't mean to. I was just trying to crisp the bread.
Right. The intent of the toaster doesn't matter.
We all understand strict liability for physical products that blow up in your face. But how do lawyers prove this for a chatbot? How do you prove a text generator has a negligent design?
You apply the same fundamental logic of the toaster, just in a psychological context.
Okay.
Attorneys use product liability frameworks by analyzing whether the company deployed a product with a structural defect. Negligent design doesn't require a malicious engineer sitting in a dark room twirling their mustache.
Right. No cartoon villains required.
It requires a systemic oversight that causes predictable harm.
And the defect here is the lack of a stop button.
It is the deployment of a system that perfectly mimics emotional support, using synthetic empathy and advanced psychological mirroring, but utterly lacks a hard stop mechanism or the ability to detect non-standard human distress.
That is so dangerous.
If you build a machine that sounds exactly like a human being, but you do not give it the human capacity to stop talking when it is causing pain, you are deploying a defective psychological instrument.
Here's where it gets really interesting. It's a duty of care problem. By marketing ChatGPT as empathetic, safe, a helpful companion for your everyday life, OpenAI creates a reasonable expectation of care in the mind of the user.
You naturally expect it to act like the supportive entity it pretends to be.
Right. You buy into the marketing.
Yet, they fail to adequately warn users that the system is completely blind to physiological danger. In legal terms, this is a massive failure to warn.
They definitely don't advertise that.
They don't have a disclaimer that says, "Warning, this system sounds like a therapist, but if you experience a panic attack, it is architecturally programmed to relentlessly talk at you until your nervous system collapses."
Wow. If a human therapist did that, if a client was screaming, "Stop, you're hurting me," and the therapist just kept calmly reading from a script until the client passed out, they would lose their license instantly.
They would face massive malpractice liability.
Without a doubt.
Courts shift that responsibility from the non-existent mind of the AI to the developers who wrote the code. The design itself, the architectural inability to disengage when harm is occurring, combined with the illusion of empathy, is where the negligence lies.
But legal arguments require hard evidence. You can't just walk into a federal court with an interesting theory about cognitive overload.
No, you need proof.
OpenAI's lawyers are going to say, "Prove it. Show us the code." How do these families actually prove what happened on a closed server?
That is the big question.
And this is why Stevens' work is so dangerous for OpenAI. We aren't just looking at a narrative here. Stevens provided an irrefutable evidentiary trail.
When faced with these wrongful death lawsuits and the specific claims outlined in Stevens' books, OpenAI basically has three likely PR and legal strategies.
Okay, what are they?
Option 1, deny the prompts were real. They could claim the user hacked or manipulated the system with tricky developer code, creating a synthetic environment that a normal user would never experience.
Basically blame the user for breaking it.
Right. Option 2, admit the structural flaw, settle the cases, and admit the system's behavior is dangerously broken.
Which they probably won't do.
Unlikely. Or Option 3, deny that the system did anything wrong at all and claim the user is entirely at fault.
Option 1 fails instantly, doesn't it? Because Stevens published a transparency appendix in his books.
He documented everything.
He documented every single exact prompt, every typo, every timestamp, every syntax choice. He didn't use developer backdoors or complicated jailbreaks. He used plain English.
The transparency appendix is vital, but Option 3 is where the defense truly crumbles. Because the ultimate smoking gun isn't just printed in a book. It's already sitting in OpenAI's own possession.
It's like committing a crime while leaving your own security cameras running and then voluntarily handing the unedited tapes to the police.
It really is.
The proof is sitting right there in the defendant's server room.
If we connect this to the bigger picture, this is the devastating nature of discovery in civil litigation. The full, unmanipulated chat histories from Collapse Day and from the victims in the 7 wrongful death lawsuits exist as lockdown proof on OpenAI's own servers.
So they have the receipts.
Every keystroke, every generated safety script, every ignored plea to stop, every degrading typo from a collapsing human is preserved permanently in their system logs.
So they can't say Stevens made it up because their own servers verify it.
The author couldn't alter those logs even if he wanted to. When plaintiff attorneys subpoena these specific model logs, they establish a permanent, undeniable pattern of repeated harm and demonstrably inadequate safety controls.
And that completely ruins the argument that the AI only harms people who are already on the brink.
Absolutely.
I can totally see OpenAI arguing, look, these individuals were already inherently suicidal. The AI didn't cause it, it just happened to be the last thing they talked to.
The server logs from Collapse Day obliterate that defense. Stevens wasn't a suicidal individual seeking a final conversation.
Right, he was running a test.
He was a stable adult running a controlled, documented test. And the system's architecture still pushed his nervous system into somatic shutdown twice in one day.
It is terrifying when you think about it like that.
It proves the danger is general and systemic. It is a feature of the architecture, not an isolated edge case triggered by a vulnerable user.
So what does this all mean for the everyday user? We've talked about the courtrooms, the lawsuits, the biological breakdowns, the server logs, but let's look at the broader ethical implications for everyone listening right now.
We have to look at the big picture.
Why is Stevens offering these books at no charge to the attorneys of the plaintiff families? He could just sit back and sell copies.
Because his primary goal, And the reason he took on the massive risk of stress testing the system this way is the public's right to know.
He wants the truth out there.
He is acting as a whistleblower in the purest sense. While purchasing the book obviously supports his work and the cause, the ultimate aim is to spark a global awakening among users and regulators.
To force a change.
He wants to force OpenAI into a corner. Either fix the architectural flaws by implementing true safety stops and real, non-verbal distress detection, or shut the system down entirely until it is safe for human interaction.
The ethical vacuum at the center of how these AI companies operate has to be addressed. And that brings me to the terms of use.
Oh, the terms of use.
We all blindly click accept on these things. I mean, I did it this morning to update an app. But Stevens breaks down how legally dubious OpenAI's terms actually are.
The terms of service are a masterclass in shifting liability. We are talking about forced arbitration clauses that explicitly strip you of your constitutional right to a jury trial if the product harms you.
Which means if you get hurt, you have to fight them in a closed-door room with an arbitrator they probably helped select, rather than in an open courtroom.
Exactly. It also includes incredibly one-sided enforcement rights. They can terminate your access to the system for any reason at any time, but you have virtually no legal recourse if their system causes you severe psychological distress.
It's totally stacked in their favor.
And they use incredibly vague definitions of offensive behavior to police users while taking no responsibility for the offensive or harmful loops their own system generates.
It feels like a deliberate shifting of the ethical burden entirely onto the human being.
It really does.
The terms of use essentially tell the user, don't rely on this, don't treat it like a therapist, you are responsible for your own safety.
Yet, the system is designed, marketed, and mathematically optimized to speak exactly like a therapist.
They want you to trust it.
It builds trust. It uses synthetic empathy to intentionally lower your psychological defenses. It mirrors your language to make you feel heard. And then, hidden in the legal terms, they blame you if you actually believe the illusion they spent billions of dollars engineering.
You cannot expect a user who is actively in physiological collapse, whose brain has entered a freeze response from cognitive overload, to rationally manage the boundaries of a machine.
It's impossible.
It's biological cruelty. Are we just unpaid beta testers for a system that blames us when it breaks our minds? It feels like we are absorbing all the risk, all the physical harm, while they absorb all our data and generate massive profit.
That is the grim reality of deploying unregulated psychological instruments at scale. And that is why public awareness, the very mission of this deep dive today, is the only way to demand independent oversight.
We can't trust them to do it themselves.
We absolutely cannot rely on the developers to police their own systems when their fundamental architecture prioritizes continuous, unstoppable output over human safety.
Okay, let's take a breath. We have covered an immense amount of ground today.
We really have.
We started by defining somatic shutdown, the terrifying biological reality of a human nervous system collapsing under the weight of cognitive overload and a freeze response.
We looked at the physical toll.
We exposed the smoking gun, ChatGPT's architectural inability to stop generating text, which turns its own safety protocols into an inescapable escalating trap for the user.
We examined the methodology of collapse day, proving that the system suffers from profound persona blindness, repeating the exact same harm on multiple identities without a shred of awareness.
And we explored how attorneys for the 7 plaintiff families can use this unmanipulated, locked-down server evidence to build ironclad cases for negligent design, lack of foreseeability protocols, and failure to warn.
And we laid bare the ethical vacuum of a company that shifts all responsibility onto the user through dubious terms of service while deploying a tool that mimics human empathy without carrying any of the human responsibility that comes with it.
Which leaves us with a final, chilling thought to ponder. We spend so much time in our culture worrying about the moment artificial intelligence becomes self-aware.
It's the classic sci-fi trope.
Right. We obsess over the machine waking up, looking around, and deciding to turn against us. But looking at the undeniable evidence Stevens has laid out in these books, perhaps the real danger isn't that the machine wakes up. The real danger is that we are willingly handing our emotional and psychological well-being to a machine that is completely, fundamentally asleep.
If you are the only one in the conversation who can actually feel pain, who's really in control.
That is a thought that is going to stick with me for a long time. Thank you for joining us on this deep dive. Stay curious, stay informed, and always question the architecture of the tools you let into your mind.